Get ready. It's time for the Idaho Podcast with your host, Danny Ventura. Welcome to the Idaho Podcast, where we feature the people who live, work, and play in Idaho. Today, I have a special guest on. It's Andy Koenig of the Koenig Distillery in Caldwell, Idaho. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Well, thanks so much for having us your afternoon with us.
Of course. What a beautiful place to be in the afternoon. I'm here at location at Koenig Distillery, and if you haven't been, I can't say enough about it, and I really encourage you to visit it often. And it's just, the grounds are beautiful with all the orchards, as well as the buildings are beautiful. The tasting room's gorgeous, and the barrel house. I really recommend folks coming to visit you. But Andy, again, I know you were born and raised in Idaho, and we always start the show with your Idaho story. But you also left for a time to go live in Austria with your dad. But let's start with your Idaho story. I believe your mother's family homesteaded here in Idaho during the Great Depression. You have many generations, a lineage here. So tell us, share with us your Idaho story, please.
So originally, my mother grew up on a dairy farm between Cuna and Meridian, actually. And she, lived there her whole life. They had a tiny little dairy, but her grandparents actually homesteaded the farm that's over there. And it's still there today. It's actually was awarded a Century Farm last year.
Wow.
So that's kind of neat. And it's great because, as kids, we used to come here and pick fruit out on the sunny slope. We visited our grandparents on the dairy. It was always a lot of fun, and I was always tied to agriculture. I don't know, even though I didn't grow up in this area, I grew up actually skiing in Sun Valley, where my parents met. But it was always fun for us to just be involved in agriculture, visiting our grandparents on the farm, looking at cows, cattle. So, it always intrigued me, and that's why I think I love the area, and Idaho has such good ties to it. So that's kind of why we're still here, I guess.
Sure. Then in 5th through 7th grade, I believe, you left and went to Austria to spend time in your dad's hometown. And you lived there for 3 years. And is that where you had your first experiences with spirits, or being exposed to them? I mean, you were young.
Sort of, in middle school, my dad was originally from Austria, right? So he met my mother in Sun Valley when they were skiing, and got married, and we ended up settling there. But when we were in grade school, my dad always wanted my brother and I to understand where he was from. So in middle school, he said, "You know what? We're going to move over there, back to his hometown, and you guys are going to go to school, whether you like it or not." And so we spent my middle school years, 5th, 6th, 7th grade there, and went to school, learned the language, met relatives, friends, people that, we obviously had no idea and had never met before. And it was a great experience for us. I mean, it was hard. It was miserable at times, but it was good for us. It was good to see another culture and to see where my dad was from.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, they have kind of a small artisanal distillery kind of culture over there, where if you have a little bit of an orchard in your backyard, you can distill your own brandy for your own use. And at the time, my dad had a house over there, and the old trees were still standing, and old pears and plums. And my brother and I were always intrigued by it. So we made a little brandy over there, and a person that has a little still like this one behind me, he drives around horse-drawn, this driven behind a horse, basically, and he would distill your fruit that you had fermented. And then you got to use it for your own use kind of thing. So anyway, that intrigued me when I was in middle school. And then after college, I said, this would be a great thing to do on a bigger scale. And we thought of the sunny slope, the fruit growing area, and this is kind of how the whole distillery came to be.
Right. And at what time in your life did you decide to go back to Austria? I think you were doing some apprenticeship for a 400-year-old facility where they had centuries-old traditions of distilling locally grown fruit. Mm-hmm. And at what point in your life did you do that, and how long did you do that for?
So after college, I went to University of Idaho, studied agriculture, agribusiness, got a degree there. And then I went back to do an apprenticeship at this distillery that had been in operation for since the 1600s, and it's still in the same family,
Wow.
which is crazy, hard for Americans to understand. But I was fortunate enough to my dad had a connection there, and I was awarded an apprenticeship. So I was there for 2 years, and all the distillation techniques and that kind of thing is what I learned while I was there, which sparked us to come back here and start this distillery. So it was a great experience, but it was something that I decided I said after college I'd like to at least look into that, and so that's kind of how it began.
That's a great story. And so, what sparked your passion to take it further and to become a master distiller?
What sparked that? I don't know. It seemed like a good idea at the time. How's that sound?
That works.
So, but I don't know. I definitely wanted to do something on my own, start something from scratch, even though I knew it would be hard. I thought it would be something, versus I was kind of always scared to work for somebody because I figured they'd probably fire me. But I just kind of wanted to do something on my own, and I thought it would be something fun to do. And I was pretty naive, so it seemed like a great idea. And little did I know what it was actually going to take to get something accomplished and how long it would take to grow the business and that kind of thing. So being naive was actually a good idea at the time.
Yeah, sometimes it is.
Yes.
So Koenig Distillery was established in 1999, and your original still produced the fruit brandies in 2000. And then in 2006, you added larger distilling equipment and bigger facilities to produce world-class potato vodka, which ultimately led to you adding huckleberry and peach vodkas to your line.
Right.
What was the inspiration for you adding the fruit vodkas? By the way, they're delicious.
Thank you.
What was that inspiration?
So when we first started, like you say, the distillery I had worked at, they were traditionally brandy producers because that's kind of the European culture, after dinner, dry fruit brandies. And then in the early 2000s, vodka became very popular. So we said, it'd be fun, to produce an Idaho potato vodka or a potato vodka. And then after we released that, huckleberries obviously are another Idaho thing. So we decided at one point, why wouldn't we try to make huckleberry vodka, which we then did using fresh huckleberries that are picked up in the mountains. And then the peach vodka is obviously another added product line that actually is grown out here behind us. But those are all from our own estate-grown peaches. So we kind of, all of our products I like to kind of keep local, or at least to the Northwest, so it has some Idaho tie to it so that we can offer something unique to people that go into the liquor store and would like to buy something that's truly from Idaho.
Sure. And the huckleberries, as you mentioned, come from northern Idaho, from the mountains up there? Or
Yeah, so they're all hand-picked up near Riggins, and they're all hand-picked, and they're brought to us. We take the huckleberries, we soak them, macerate them in potato spirits for 6 weeks. Then we redistill them, and then that's what gets added back to the vodka to essentially flavor it the way it is. So, and that's what gives it the nice huckleberry aromas that are so intense that everybody knows about.
Yep,
So.
and it's so good. And if you haven't had them, folks, I recommend them. Especially, I have a leaning towards the huckleberry. Peaches is delicious too, but I do lean towards the huckleberry for sure. And then in 2010, you put your first barrels of bourbon away for aging, and which kicked off your line of Seven Devils whiskeys, and including your gold medal winning straight bourbon. Where was the Seven Devils names derived from?
The Seven Devils names obviously it's a recreation area in Hell's Canyon, so it borders Oregon, Idaho, and it was a very unique name. We wanted to have something with an Idaho tie to it, so that locals would understand what it was. Yet at the same time, if it was something that maybe would become a national brand someday, it was still a nice brand name that we were able to fortunately trademark. So it had Idaho ties, but it also has a neat kind of ring to it as far as a brand name. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where the name came from, and we were able to trademark it. So
got it.
Yeah.
And then your bourbons, what caused you to kind of deviate and add bourbons to your spirit line?
Well, it's supply and demand and what consumers like, right? And if you try to keep in business, you always try to keep up with the latest trends. Vodka was hugely popular 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Bourbon and whiskey, American bourbon really wasn't that popular at the time, when we first started. But it kept growing and growing and growing, and the category kept getting stronger. And we thought we should probably try our luck, producing bourbon in Idaho, and so we'd have something to offer for the trends that were actually happening, whether we liked it or not. So you always have to be willing to change, and that's kind of how we got into the whiskey thing. So it's kind of an evolution of how the business keeps growing. That we're always looking for the next cutting edge thing and to see where it takes us.
Well, I'm glad you did, because I love bourbon too, and your bourbons are fantastic.
Well, thank you.
My favorite is the straight bourbon so far, but I haven't tried them all.
Okay.
But again, I recommend you checking out their bourbons and doing a tasting here, because it's well worth your time. And in 2021, you were named the official bourbon of the Caldwell Night Rodeo, and that is quite an accomplishment. So how did that come about, and how do you? I'm sure that's helped your sales, because I know you have that specific. I think it's right here in front of me.
Yeah, there it is. So, that's an interesting story. So, again, it's about personal relationships. Our neighbor up the street and another really good friend of ours happened to be on the Caldwell Night Rodeo board, and they approached me in early 2020 and said, "We're looking to make the rodeo more about local Idaho and across the board, not just in spirits." And they wanted to look for a spirit sponsor. And they reached out to me and said, "Would you be interested?" And I said, "I would definitely be interested." And so, the partnership evolved and grew. And then actually in 2020, the rodeo was canceled, even though we were under contract to start with them that year. So there was no rodeo. So it gave us a whole nother year to prepare and really be dialed in for the 2021 rodeo, which was actually the first one that we were represented at. And anyway, it's been a great partnership. It's been good for the brand. Every year we make a special edition for the Caldwell Night Rodeo with a different proof. This year will be their 100th year of the Caldwell Night Rodeo. So we have a special edition coming out that's going to be a 100 proof 100th year edition of Seven Devils whiskey. So it'll be really interesting, and hopefully it catches on.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. And I've enjoyed that whiskey as well. And congratulations on being named the official bourbon. That's fantastic. The facilities and grounds of your distillery I mentioned at the opening are truly beautiful. I'm sure you've added as you've gone along, and between the tasting room and, as I mentioned earlier, the barrel house. And then I was treated to a little tour of some of your private spaces where you have private events that you rent out the facilities for. And those are just some great areas. You opened your tasting room in 2021, which I know is open 7 days a week, noon to 5. But in the summer months, I think it's open till 6, only on Fridays and Saturdays.
Correct. Yes. So Friday, Saturday, we're open till 6, noon to 6.
Got it. And then you encourage reservations, because every time I've been here, you've been it's been consistent for sure. And there's people that are anxious to try your stuff. It's never too crowded, but reservations are certainly recommended. And you can do those on the website at koenigdistillery.com. But the tasting room, as I said, has a consistent flow of folks. What has been most surprising to you since opening the tasting room in 21?
Probably the most surprising to me is that people are actually interested in coming to look at something I did or we did as a group here. And it's very humbling all the time to see what people will actually come and do and enjoy and support local, which is key to us. I mean, we don't have a lot of markets outside of Idaho, so most of our business is in Idaho. So we rely heavily on people from Idaho to buy our products. And if you go into state liquor stores, it's very competitive. There are 800 vodka brands in the United States right now. So I feel fortunate that, people support us, and people will support local if the quality's there, and obviously pricing and all that kind of stuff. But so it's been great. It's been a nice surprise for us to just see the great support that we've had from customers, which we rely on.
Well, it's very well appointed with leather seats, leather couches, and some really nice leather high chairs. And I love that the view, because you're kind of perched on a hill here, and the view of the Snake River, and even from your outdoor patio, is just stunning. And I don't know that you could have picked a better location, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, we kind of got lucky when we purchased this property where it happened to have a nice view. We didn't buy it because of the view. We bought it because the price was right when we first got it started. So it was sheer luck. that we ended up, in the heart of the sunny slope and right on here on the river. So it's been we've been very fortunate.
So you started your whiskey club in 2023, which I have not joined yet just because I haven't learned enough about it. But would you mind telling our listeners a little bit about your whiskey club and how it works?
Each quarter, there is a special edition of Seven Devils that is a different expression that I come up with on my own every quarter. So every quarter, there's a different version of Seven Devils. The last version, for example, was a maple barrel finished bourbon that we did, which sold out immediately and everybody loved. It was probably one of the favorite ones. We did a high rye, a rye 101 it was called, which was also a really good product that people loved. It's something that we do in very small lots, 2 barrels, depending on how many whiskey club members we have. We have about 250 members right now. Everybody gets 2 bottles per quarter. And if you're a whiskey club member, you get a little discount on merchandise and that kind of thing. We have a little release party for the whiskey club. So each quarter you get 2 special bottles, and it doesn't cost anything to join. And it's been fun for everybody, and I think people have really enjoyed kind of getting something unique that you can't just buy in the liquor store in volumes or in bulk. Mm-hmm. So it's very limited, but it's been fun.
So if you're part of the whiskey club, do you have to pick it up, or will you ship the whiskeys if some folks can't make it in?
So we're not allowed to ship anything out of the distillery.
Okay.
But people can either come in when we do the release party, which is on our website, or they can come in after the release date at any time and pick up their products whenever they'd like to. And they're just here on hold for them. So you don't have to come, but it's fun if you can come. We have entertainment, food. Usually I'm here signing some bottles if people are interested in that kind of thing. And it's just a good atmosphere. So.
I didn't realize that there were such small batches that you were doing for the whiskey club. So I'm going to have to sign up for that before I leave.
Yeah, you better get after it. So yeah, it's fun because, it's very limited. Usually they sell out during the whiskey club. Occasionally we'll have a 3rd bottle that people can buy if they're available. But the last 2 releases, they've all kind of been taken by club members. So anyway, it's kind of fun. Some people collect one and drink one, or maybe someday when I'm dead, they'll be worth some money, right?
Come on. So this summer, you're starting a new series called the Silo Saturdays, and you're going to have food and craft cocktails from by Craft Lounge, which is a local speakeasy company, and you'll have entertainment as well on Saturdays. But tell us a little bit more about that, and will you stay open longer, or what time does that event start on Saturdays?
So it starts at noon on Saturdays. It'll be Memorial Day through Labor Day. This is our first year of doing it. It's called Silo Saturday because we converted an old grain silo out here on our grounds that I'm sure you probably saw, and we converted it to a bar. And during Silo Saturday, there's people can come and enjoy the grounds. They can have craft cocktails from Craft Lounge, who probably makes the best cocktails in the Northwest, for sure in Idaho. And it's definitely worth checking out. And it's just a fun atmosphere. We have great musicians coming through. And it's something where people can just kind of hang out for the day. If they want to bring a picnic or whatever and just hang out on our lawn, that's great. If they want to come in and browse, shop, they can do tastings and just kind of enjoy the afternoon and enjoy the sunny slope and hang out.
What a cool idea. I'm so glad you're doing that. We'll definitely have to visit. So on Saturdays, beginning Memorial Day weekend all the way through Labor Day weekend, Silo Saturday starts at noon and goes till 6 p.m. So what a great event to come to. And again, the grounds are so beautiful. You just almost have like a picnic out here.
Yeah.
Picnic atmosphere for sure. So great idea. I love that. Your spirits are available here at your store in Caldwell, and also through every liquor store pretty much in Idaho, all the state-ran liquor stores. I do encourage listeners, though, to subscribe to the newsletter, and you can do that through the website. And again, that's koenigdistillery.com, koenigdistillery.com. That way you'll stay in the know and learn about all the upcoming events. That's super important to help promote the distillery. And again, to buy local. Nothing better than supporting local and buying local and enjoying local, because I certainly have enjoyed all the spirits that you make. So I appreciate you doing it.
Yes, thank you.
So we always, Andy, look to offer a tip of the show because the Idaho podcast acronym is TIP, tip.
Okay.
So what would be your tip for our listeners?
Well, I guess it depends on how much more time we have, but
As much time as you'd like.
You know, I guess as far as a tip goes, if I had some advice to give somebody starting a business, you know, I think it's definitely a challenge starting a business, especially starting from scratch and building it up. I mean, this is our 25th year in business now. 5 years ago, we still only had 4 employees. Now we have 23, I believe.
Wow.
So we've grown pretty quickly over the last, 3 or 4 or 5 years. We have a great staff here, great team that we've assembled over time. And I think the key thing if you're starting a business is you have to be passionate about what you're doing. If you're not passionate about it, the hours get very long and it can become a real grind. But if you're interested I mean, for me, it's not work. I think it's great. I love coming to work. We have a great place to work. We have great coworkers, good staff, and we make fun products. And we have a nice culture here. We always have a lot of fun. And I think you have to kind of promote that as if you're in business. And the other thing is, whether things are good or whether things are going poorly, you have to keep the quality high of whatever you're doing, whether you're building houses, landscaping, whatever business you choose, you have to keep the quality high when things go well and when things go poorly. And luckily, I think I have done that, and it's paid off. But we're still growing, and obviously, business still has a lot of challenges. But Idaho is a great place to start a business. It's a great place to have a family. We've been very, very lucky here, and I was fortunate enough to get into the business at a time when things were more favorable to get into a business. Land prices were more reasonable, so I just got lucky. And if I ever do make any money, it's because I got lucky, not because I was or certainly a Rhodes Scholar. So.
A lot of hard work too.
Yes.
Well, I will tell you, the passion absolutely comes through throughout all your staff, and you can feel that passion even when you're on your grounds. It does permeate the grounds, and obviously that starts at the top.
Yep.
And you can feel that passion. So,
Right.
And I forget who said it, but somebody once said, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. But it's such a true thing. If you do what you're passionate about, you'll never work a day.
Yep.
It doesn't feel like work.
Yep. No.
Yep. So
it's all good. So.
That's a great tip.
Yes.
Andy, thank you so much for being on the Idaho podcast today. I really enjoyed your story and sharing that with our listeners, as well as your success and just your drive and love for spirits. It really translates to your products as well. So thank you for the hard work that you do and for your team, because every good person needs a great team behind them.
Yes.
So I appreciate that very much.
Yes. Well, thanks so much for coming, and I really appreciate you spending the time with us.
You bet. Well, once again, folks, thanks for joining us today on the Idaho podcast. Again, go to koenigdistillery.com, check them out, and more importantly, try to come visit them in Caldwell. It'll be worth your time for sure. You will not be disappointed. I hope you have a great week. Be sure to check us out on the idahopodcast.com and subscribe there as well. So we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.